They say that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But in my case, I drank the poison, liked the taste, and then forced everyone else to drink it too. To this day, recalling the absolute devastation I rained down on my ex gives me a dark, twisted sense of satisfaction. It's a warmth in my chest that I know I shouldn't feel. I know the moral high ground is supposed to be about forgiveness and moving on, but I can't lie to you or to myself about how good the destruction felt. It is, without a doubt, one of the most potent highs I have ever experienced. I'm sharing this now, for the first time in a public forum, because the story is too complex and frankly too damning to tell in polite conversation. I'm going to do my absolute best to recount this with clinical precision. I won't try to make myself look like a hero, because I wasn't one. I won't try to make her look worse than she was, because the facts do that on their own. I want this to be an autopsy of a relationship and the monster that crawled out of its carcass. Let's set the stage. At the time this nightmare unfolded, I was a scholarship athlete at a major university. I was playing basketball at the highest collegiate level. My schedule was a blur of flights, hotels, arenas, and training facilities. My entire identity was wrapped up in the sport. But beneath the jersey and the public praise, I was unknowingly stepping onto the on-ramp of a severe substance abuse problem. Years later, I would find salvation in a 12-step program that millions of people know by heart. If you are in recovery, you know exactly how extreme we can be. This narrative is, in many ways, an explanation of a character flaw that exploded during these events and nearly killed me. But I don't want your pity. I just want you to understand the sequence of events. Growing up, I was the good guy. I had a rough start in life, but I prided myself on having a strong moral compass. I opened doors, I told the truth, and I believed in karma. When it came to romance, I was naive. I knew cheating existed, of course, but I viewed it as something that happened to other people who didn't know how to treat their partners. I had this arrogant belief that because I was a dedicated, attentive, 5-star boyfriend, I was immune to betrayal. I truly believed my choice in women was impeccable. I was young, full of hubris, and completely blind. The story begins in my junior year. I had been single for a while after a high school romance fizzled out. I treated that breakup as a lesson and felt ready for the real thing. I was looking for a wife, not a fling. I thought I had it all figured out. Then I saw her. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah was a standout sprinter on the university track team. I'd see her around the athletic complex, in the training rooms, and at the mixers. She was incredibly talented, fast, and beautiful. I told myself that the next time our paths crossed at a social event, I would make my move. Fate intervened at a team party. We passed on a staircase, locked eyes, and she flashed a smile that hooked me instantly. We started talking, exchanged contacts, and began that slow, agonizing dance of modern courtship. Weeks of texting, subtle hints, the push and pull of trying to gauge interest without showing your hand. There was a catch, though. Sarah was technically on a break with a linebacker from the football team. Eventually, she cut him loose to be with me. That should have been the first siren blaring in my head. If they will cheat times with times you, they will cheat times on times you. But my ego was driving the car. I felt superior. I thought, of course she left him. I'm the better option. She's trading up. I was an idiot. I was so infatuated with her, so addicted to the validation of having her, that I ignored the reality of her character. Fast forward 8 months. We are an official item. Sarah had a dorm, but she basically lived at my off-campus apartment. She even stayed there when I was traveling for games, which was half the week. We were, by all accounts, deeply in love. The season ended, and I threw a massive weekend bender. Friday was a teammate's birthday. Saturday was mine. The plan was to rage for 48 hours straight. On Friday night, Sarah and I stumbled home drunk and were intimate. We didn't use protection. Sarah was meticulous about tracking her cycle because, as an elite athlete, her schedule was often irregular. In my drunken state, around 5 a.m., I remembered she always logged our intimacy to keep track of potential pregnancy risks. "Hey," I slurred, shaking her shoulder. "Put it in the app. We won't remember tomorrow." She groaned, unlocked her phone, opened the tracking application, and immediately passed back out with the screen still glowing. I took the phone from her hand, intending to be helpful. I just wanted to log the date. Now, a quick sidebar. Sarah was notoriously jealous. She constantly went through my digital life texts, DMs, emails. I let her do it because I had nothing to hide. I never cheated. I thought her jealousy was just passion. Looking back, it was projection. So, there I was, holding her unlocked phone, staring at this cycle tracking interface. It looked like a calendar. I noticed different colored dots on various dates. Curious, I tapped the legend to understand the code. Red meant her cycle. Black meant intimacy without protection. My stomach dropped through the floor. The calendar looked like a checkerboard. It was riddled with black dots. I felt a cold sweat break out. I started cross-referencing the dates. There were black markers on weekends when I was in Florida, black markers when I was in New York, black markers on days I had double headers 3 states away. I started clicking on the individual dates. She had used the notes section to log the names of the partners. There were 4 different men. 4. During the time we were supposedly exclusive, she had allowed 4 other men into her bed. Some months, the calendar was so full it looked like she was running a rotation. There were days with double entries. I sat there, freezing in the pre-dawn light, realizing that the woman sleeping next to me was a stranger. One of the names was her ex, the football player she left for me. Another was a guy I didn't know. The other 2 looked like random hookups. And remember, these were just the times she didn't use protection. God only knows what the real number was. I sobered up instantly. The adrenaline burned the alcohol right out of my blood. I went to her messages. She had deleted almost everything. But on her specific device, there was a trash folder for text that showed the metadata, but not the content. Thousands of deleted messages. I cross-referenced the numbers. I found her ex. I found random guys. And then, the dagger to the heart. I found the numbers of 2 of my own teammates. One of them was a guy I considered a close friend. I set the phone down on the nightstand. The silence in the room was deafening. I looked at her sleeping face, so peaceful, so innocent, and I felt a physical pain in my gut, like I'd been kicked by a mule. The betrayal was total. It wasn't just cheating. It was a systematic, documented lifestyle of deception. I felt stupid. I felt humiliated. And then, I had a thought that haunts me. I regretted being faithful. I sat there wishing I had cheated on her, just so I wouldn't be the only fool in the equation. I felt like my loyalty was a wasted resource. I needed air. I walked out of the apartment and just started marching down the street. I didn't know where I was going. My ego had been dismantled. I was too embarrassed to call my parents, too ashamed to tell my friends. Sadness metastasized into rage. Pure, white-hot hatred. I knew, right then and there, that I was going to destroy her. I didn't have a plan yet, but I had the intent. My phone rang. It was my roommate, Ivan. Ivan was a 7-foot-tall Eastern European center, blunt as a hammer and loyal to a fault. "Where are you?" he asked. "Walking," I said. "Don't tell anyone, but I found everything." "She's cheating." "With everyone." Silence. Then I heard him moving in the apartment. Over the phone, I heard him bellow in his thick accent. "Get out! Get out now!" I heard Sarah scream, confusion, shuffling, and the door slamming. "Come home," Ivan said. "We talk." I went back. We sat in the living room. Ivan, usually a man of few words, tried to comfort me. "Tonight is your birthday," he said. "We get obliterated, we find new girls. She is dead to us." Right. My birthday. We went to get food. I was running on fumes and fury. My phone started blowing up. It was Sarah. I texted her 3 words. I saw everything. She panicked. She begged to come to the party. She wasn't worried about losing me. She was worried about her social standing. Her entire reputation was built on being the girlfriend of a star athlete. If she didn't show up to the biggest party of the year, questions would be asked. She knew that if I cut her off, her social currency would crash. That night is a blur. A friend from the West Coast had sent a care package, high-grade cannabis, concentrates, pills, and powders. I dove into that box like it was a life raft. There is a photo of me from that night, sitting on a throne-like chair at the club, sunglasses on, jaw clenched, surrounded by people. If you look closely, you can see a man who is completely dead inside. The drugs worked. For the first time, I wasn't using them to party. I was using them to survive. I felt invincible. I thought, I never want to feel feelings again. I just want this numbness. That was the moment the good kid died. I told everyone we broke up. but I didn't say why. I kept the ammunition for later. Now, let's talk about the revenge. It wasn't a single act. It was a campaign. I realized that my morals were a shackle, so I took them off. I adopted a new philosophy. I am the villain now. I started scouting. I went on social media and saw one of her track teammates. A plan formed. I didn't have hard proof she slept with my teammates, but I knew she was terrified of her secrets coming out. I decided to hit her where she lived, her team. The women's track team was large and, frankly, full of attractive women. I picked a target, a girl on Sarah's relay team. She had a boyfriend. I didn't care. I initiated the digital flirtation protocol. Likes, comments, DMs. Within a week, she was in my bed. I moved to the next one. Another teammate, then another. In a span of a month, I slept with 3 girls from her inner circle. 2 of them had boyfriends. I became a homewrecker, and I loved it. It validated my twisted new worldview. Everyone cheats. Loyalty is a lie. Take what you want. I started keeping trophies. A scarf, a distinct piece of jewelry, a pair of shoes. One girl left a pair of custom sneakers at my place. I knew Sarah would recognize them immediately because they belonged to the girl who Sarah's ex had rebounded with. It was layers upon layers of betrayal. I collected these items in a pile in my closet. Eventually, the bomb went off. One of the boyfriends found out. The track team exploded into drama. Accusations flew. Best friends turned into enemies. The relay team, which relied on chemistry, fell apart. Their times got slower. Their rankings dropped. I watched it all from a distance, feeling like a puppet master. To add insult to injury, the university marketing department launched a campaign featuring me. My face was on banners 3 stories high on the side of campus buildings. Sarah couldn't walk to class without seeing a 50-foot image of me looking triumphant. Her coach actually tried to get the posters taken down, claiming they were distracting her athletes. My coach laughed in her face. "He hasn't broken any laws," he said. "Deal with your own team." I was winning, but I was also rotting. I posted photos constantly, me smiling, me with other girls, me living the dream. It was all a lie. I was miserable, bitter, and high out of my mind 24/7. I expanded my target list. I went after her classmates. I went after her friends from home. I even flirted with her married sister, and I almost got somewhere before her father stepped in and shut it down. I wanted Sarah to feel suffocated. I wanted her to know that I was everywhere. Sarah cracked. She took a medical leave of absence. She went home to her parents. She was depressed, losing weight, and reportedly suicidal. Did I feel bad? No. I felt powerful. I told myself she deserved every ounce of pain. She had invited this chaos. Weeks later, she tried to contact me. She needed to pick up the rest of her belongings from my apartment. She was staying with her parents nearby. I told her I couldn't let her in because I had company. I did, but it was just friends. I told her I'd drop her stuff off. I went to my closet. I grabbed all the trophies, the panties, the shirts, the jewelry from her teammates and friends. I threw them all into a heavy-duty trash bag. Then I threw her clothes in there with them. I shook the bag to mix it all up. I drove to her parents' house, dropped the bag on the porch, and called her dad. "Her stuff is outside," I said. 15 minutes later, she called me. She wasn't yelling. She was wailing. It was a guttural sound of pure defeat. She had opened the bag and found the evidence of my rampage mixed in with her hoodies. She knew exactly whose items they were. "Why?" she sobbed. "Why are you doing this?" I replied, cold as ice. "You mixed other guys into our relationship. I mixed other girls' trash into yours. Seems fair." I hung up. I felt like a king. Later, I heard she had convinced herself times was the cheater all along, constructing some delusion to protect her psyche. I didn't care. I had won the war. Months passed. Sarah returned to school. We bumped into each other at the rehab facility. I saw one last opportunity. I played nice. I softened my voice. I told her I missed her. She was wary, but I knew her weaknesses. Slowly, over a week, I reeled her back in. We started talking. I demanded total control. If we were going to try again, I said, I needed her passwords, her location, and she was cut off from male friends. She agreed to everything. She was desperate for redemption. I, of course, promised her nothing and continued to sleep with other people. We dated for a month. It was a hostage situation, not a relationship. Finally, I let her catch me with a girl from her biology class. The breakup was nasty. I looked her in the eye and said, "Now you know exactly how I felt." I graduated and moved to the tropics, Central America. I wanted to disappear. My life spiraled. I was working, but my real job was consuming narcotics. I was involved in shady dealings. I was a hollow shell of the athlete I used to be. A year later, Sarah messaged me. Enough time had passed that the anger had dulled into a dull ache. We started chatting, friendly, flirty. I told her I was coming back to the States for a visit. But I lied. I told her I was moving back permanently for a job. "Let's meet up," she said. "Maybe the timing is finally right." I flew back. I met her at a coffee shop. I turned on the charm. We spent the next 48 hours together. It was like old times. She thought she had her boyfriend back. She thought we were going to build a future. On the third morning, while she was in the shower, I packed my bag. I drove to the airport, flew back to the tropics, and blocked her on everything. I ghosted her from a different continent. That was my final act of vengeance. I left her waiting for a future that didn't exist. But here is the truth that I need you to hear. It didn't fix me. 3 years later, I was in a hospital bed, organs failing, near death from my addiction. I hadn't been sober for a single day since I found those black dots on her phone. My revenge had destroyed her, yes, but it had turned me into a monster. I had torched my own soul to burn her. I had become a liar, a manipulator, and a cruel, empty person. I blamed her for my darkness, but the darkness was a choice I made every day. I eventually got clean. It took years of work. I had to rebuild my entire personality from the ground up. I'm married now. I have a good job. I'm happy. But I look back at that young man, that basketball player with the bright future, and I mourn him. He died in that apartment, looking at a cell phone screen. If you are reading this, and you have been betrayed, I know you want blood. I know you want to make them hurt as much as you do. But take it from someone who went nuclear. The blast radius hits you too. Revenge is a distraction from healing. It feels good in the moment, like a hit of a drug, but the come down is brutal. Don't do what I did. Don't become the thing you hate. Walk away. Heal. That is the only victory that actually matters.